Go Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know, I'm your humble host, the Y'all Mean of Revolution. We got to look into this C.I.A. mKultra operative who had the mass shooting. Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button. We in the House of Revolution. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform, y'all. Well, it's a lot of this going around. Very dangerous individuals on these drugs.
New updates on the trans mass shooter in Minnesota. A psyop, perhaps? Who knows? But as journalist Whitney Webb has been warning us for years that the government is trying to push us into a pre-crime authoritarian surveillance state using the likes of Peter Thiel's Palantir and others. Think of it like a Minority Report, biosurveillance state. We're going to watch and monitor everything you do, put us under a permanent state of surveillance. So it's very curious that when this happens on the very same day, and the cozy relationship that the Trump administration has with Peter Thiel, we know the money that, of course, J.D. Vance has also received from Peter Thiel and the folks from Palantir, that Melania Trump tweeted this about pre-crime. The tragic mass killing in Minnesota illuminates the need for preemptive intervention in identifying potential school shooters. Early warning signs are often evident, with many individuals exhibiting concerning behaviors and making violent threats online prior to their actions. If only we had some sort of brains like Palantir that could find out all of this information ahead of time, and know about it. So to prevent future tragedies, it's crucial we look into behavioral threat assessments across all levels of society, she writes, beginning in our homes, extending through school districts, and of course, social media platforms. Being aware of these warning signs, acting quickly can save lives. Okay. Well, it's all very convenient and it might sound fine. Maybe you're just reading too much into that statement, perhaps. What's even more convenient, though, is that we learned about an hour ago, thanks to some great work by Alex Jones, turns out that the shooter's father worked for 29 years as a top contractor for the CIA and the DOD.
No.
You cannot make this shit up. Watch.
James Westman, let's read about him. Very interesting. Senior application developer at ESRI. What is ESRI? Well, ESRI is the leading original geospatial satellite ground mapping GPS coordinate system for the Pentagon, Google, and everything else. He's been working there since 96, 29 years, 7 months, and a whole bunch of other very interesting places. The GIS for Defense and Intelligence. Here's the company, the hands-down leader in all of it. ESRI is a global leader in geographic information systems, GIS software, and has various contracts with the U.S. government agencies, including the Central Intelligence Agency and the Department of Defense through GSA, schedules, enterprises, license agreements.
All right, so, you can't make this up. And there's a lot of similarities to other shooters and people who've worked at high levels of the U.S. intelligence community. Mass shootings, connections, of course, to the intelligence community in the United States. Again, coincidence? I don't think so, but we're going to continue to dig on this story.
So we can't exclude.
Well, the man that shot up a Catholic Catholic school in Minnesota, killing 2 Christian children, injuring many others, wrote in his diary that he, quote, was tired of being trans and that he wished he never brainwashed himself.
This tracks with the research that we have shown you. And if you had read the CAS documents and the other scientific documents and the whistleblower, we've shown you this before.
Yeah.
That a lot of times when you lock a kid in, as simple as just using their new name, that locks them into a path that they don't know how to get out of, and it does not resolve their mental health discomfort. We told you so. Sorry. Couldn't help but say that we told you so.
No, you're an equal member of the show, so continue.
Oh. We showed you that. Okay.
All right. So questions.
I got lost because I got mad. I got mad because we've known this about these kids. It's like they dig their heels in and they do things that are so dramatic and they make everyone around them bend over. And no one says, you don't know what you're going to want later on. You might want to hold off. And his writing, in fact, showed that he said, well, I just got to keep, my hair long because I've gone too far now and it would be embarrassing to turn back. So you have not, in fact, accepted your kid if you have pushed them into this or allowed them to go this far into something they can't back themselves out of. I'm upset about it. Meanwhile, questions are swirling about what type of, if any, hormones was this person on? Because we know that cross-sex hormones have all manner of contraindications, including suicide thoughts, thoughts of violence, things like that. And then was he further on antidepressants, the SSRIs, which we also know are related and associated with and have label warnings of violence and suicidal thoughts.
And almost every mass shooting in this country over the past few decades have had 2 common denominators: antidepressants, and they were trans. Here's just a sampling of the trans shooters that we've seen in the United States over the past few decades. Can we finally have a discussion about this and stop defending Big Pharma? Well, Brian Kilmeade actually asked Secretary Kennedy that very question this morning. Watch.
We're still trying to get a lot of answers to a ton of questions. But the one thing is clear, you are dealing with a person who's trans, that was transitioning. Are you going to be examining at all some of the drugs that are used in order to make that transition happening, to see if it plays a role? Because we also know there was a trans shooter in the Tennessee situation.
Yeah, we are doing those kind of studies now at NIH. We're launching studies on the potential contribution of some of the SSRI drugs and some of the other psychiatric drugs that might be contributing to violence. Many of them on there have black box warnings that warn of suicidal ideation and homicidal ideation. So we can't exclude those as a culprit, and those are the kind of studies that we're doing.
All right. Well, Bob Schwartz is an adverse event survivor, the founder of A Better Bob, and he's been sounding the alarm about the connection between antidepressants and mass shootings for years. Bob, thank you so much for joining us. At least now this is part of the conversation. We have the normal Democrats and guns, right? But now there's this, and we have not seen this before. So are you encouraged by this? And would you like to say, I told you so?
Oh, absolutely. First off, guys, thanks so much for having me, and happy birthday.
Oh, thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
Yeah. Yes, 21 years ago, I suffered an adverse event from a simple doctor's appointment where I was prescribed a psychostimulant, which is an ADHD medication. Never had any kind of history of mental illness or focus issues. But I told my doctor I was a little bit off my A game as far as focusing. And in that appointment, he gave me a prescription for a drug called Concerta. He asked me how much I weighed, and which I thought was unusual for those kind of drugs. I found out later. And he gave me a prescription at 54 milligrams when the starting dose for that drug is 18. I took the drug for 5 days, and life has never been the same. I was one of the top technology guys in Atlanta at the time, living a life of utopia, married, 2 kids, again, just having a fantastic career. And 5 days later, I had an acute psychosis. And if you need a visual of what that's like, it's very similar to A Beautiful Mind. And 2 years later, I lost everything: my family, my home, and my reputation. And in the meantime, I tried to get in touch with everybody to get help, or at least let everybody know about what was going on, as far as something was off. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Can somebody please help me? I got in touch with the FDA. I got in touch with Johnson & Johnson, the drug manufacturer. I got in touch with the Georgia Medical Board, and numerous times going on back. And basically, I was neglected. I was abandoned, and I was ghosted. And it wasn't until 5 years ago during the pandemic that I knew that I had to do something unconventional to let the public know about what happened to me. So I teamed up with an Emmy award-winning director, and we did a 30-minute documentary that won a Telly Award out in New York out of 15,000 entries. And it goes through the whole 21-year experience that I had in regards to that psychostimulant, and obviously we've been able to combine it with the SSRIs, but we've been able to make the link that this is.
Revolutionary salute to our Queen Lacey for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is a way of life. Absolutely appreciate the love, Queen. Salute to you.
Probably the root cause or the common denominator behind all of these mass shootings that are going on.
Yeah, I mean, we had so many people when we covered the story yesterday here on the show after the shooting happened. So many people in our chat room. We've got tens of thousands of people watching this live. So many people said, I tried antidepressants and it made me suicidal and I had to get off of them. I went kind of crazy. So many people over and over. And actually, let us know right now in our comments, how many of you tried some sort of an antidepressant, some sort of an SSRI, something like that, where it triggered just a absolute, crazy episode or suicidal tendencies. We've interviewed a woman here who lost her husband, totally normal guy, he was a little anxious. So they prescribed an SSRI and she found him hanging dead in their house afterwards. And she's on a mission to also end this.
You're talking about Kim Witzak?
Yes, exactly. Yes. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is this any shock when you see the discussion now about the shooter yesterday and you hear his rambling videotape where he's just saying he's got bugs under his skin and he wants to shoot the president and all of these other things? Does it
track?
Yeah, does it track
with what you know about these drugs?
Well, and that's where my experience is kind of almost like firsthand. A lot of people have to experience this from a third party. I went through all the worst side effects you could possibly ever go through with these drugs. I went through almost harming myself, and it was. And again, I was trying to let everybody know, and it's well documented. I was trying to let everybody know what was going on with my life. And people got to realize that the main side effects of these drugs is homicidal and suicidal thoughts, or more or less thought disorder or faulty thinking. That's the scariest part of those drugs. And when you're going through those kind of thoughts, and then you're filled with apathy, on top of that, and paranoia, it's a very dangerous situation.
One person in our chat room just said, sorry to interrupt, but just said he was prescribed an antidepressant in the Army, and he nearly died as a result of it. In the Army allows the prescriptions of SSRIs, and on the black box warning of it says.
But let's talk for a second about what we know about this, because these are documented in the trials. So when these things are observed by Big Pharma, why are they not flagged? Is a black label enough? Because I don't think that parents or young people can give consent to this when this information is not front and center.
Yes, it's it's highly unusual, and the big pharma companies know this is going on, but they choose, you know what, they choose to again abandon, neglect, and really ghost you on that situation. But Johnson and Johnson reached out to me in 2019 when they knew that, and they promised me a full investigation from 2004, and it's well documented in the documentary film. And they realized the doctor prescribed the drug at 3 times the starting normal dose, but they don't want to help me. And that's the problem. They don't want my story out there in the public, and you know, that's why I've got this redemption story going on, and I tie a lot of spiritual redemption to, you know, what I'm trying to do, and at the end of the day, I want to stop what happened yesterday. You know, I want to stop the unspeakable hardship that's happening to good people and their families.
How difficult a task will that be, do you think? I mean, you're up against a behemoth, big pharma.
I think obviously the tax is going to be bigger, but my God's bigger. So I'm basically looking on that calling, and I know we'll get this done because you look at in history, you know, in 1920, leaded gasoline was known to cause neurological damage to people, and it was creating crime in cities. And they knew about this until 1973, when you know, Congress got together and they restricted leaded gasoline and to go unleaded. And, you know, it took till 1996 until we got all the lead out of gasoline. I think we got kind of a similar situation that is going on here. And I think until we can prove that the return on health on these drugs is just not there. And we have to regulate. We got to regulate the medical industry. You know, there's more regulation in the financial industry to deliver ROI than there is in the medical industry to deliver ROH. And which one's more important?
Yeah, right.
Right.
Exactly.
Have you ever read the work of Thomas Saz? He's one of the fathers of modern psychology, and he warned that the pharmacratic state would expand. They would continue to have control over you, and these drugs would be one way. And I mean, he was warning this in the 60s and the 70s, and this is, it's happened. So it was so prescient to read his work, and we're here now, and we have to decide whether or not, because again, this is another way the government can say, you need this, sorry, your mental health is an issue, you belong to us now, and there's no control of your own life based on this promise that's not even there.
Yeah.
So we've been walking this wrong path for decades.
Absolutely. You know, this is the 20th anniversary of the Tom Cruise, Matt Lauer interview, where Tom Cruise came out and said, if we keep going down this path, we're going to be living in a brave new world. And he was spot on 20 years ago.
Here we are.
And he almost lost his career and everything over that interview with Matt Lauer.
And he's been vindicated. I know that that video has surfaced again over the past couple of years, and it's amazing. He was absolutely spot on. Well, Bob, thank you so much for coming on the show. Bob Schwartz, adverse event survivor, founder of @BetterBob, A Better Bob. You can find it on Twitter @ABetterBob. Thank you so much, Bob. Great to hear your story. Thank you for sharing it with us.
The movie, the documentary, and the movie, and the website is at rxisks.org. That's rxisks.org. And you can go on there and you can watch the 30-minute award-winning documentary film.
This latest terrible tragic shooting. I mean, within hours, we're told he was trans, Russian, anti-Israel, and anti-Trump. We see messages that have been written all over his weapons. I mean, we get these videos of the weapons and him showing them off. We get his journal. This is like the manifesto. We get all of these many pages of a manifesto. When have we ever seen so much information come out so fast in a mass shooting? Doesn't this just seem a little bit too convenient? Right? I mean, look, I don't want to be the big conspiracy theorist here, but I think we have to be a conspiracy theorist about this, or it's not even a theory when it's an actual conspiracy. Let me play for you this video. And this is what I'm talking about. This is where I think all of this is leading, you know, why they're showing us this person, and he just happens to have all the traits that the neocons hate, right? He's anti-Israel. He's Russian, kind of connected to Russia somehow, which we'll get into that because he's not actually, but he somehow knows how to write in Russian. He knows how to write in Cyrillic. He at 23 years old, who's not Russian. He is anti-Trump, all these things. But this is where I think this is leading. Watch, this is Aaron Cohen. He's a former Israeli special ops vet, and he is on Fox News, and this is what he's saying.
Correct. I am now about to launch Gideon, America's first ever AI threat detection platform built specifically for law enforcement. It scrapes the internet 24/7 using an Israeli grade ontology to pull specific threat language and then routes it to local law enforcement. It's a 24/7 detective. It never sleeps, and it's going to get us in front of these attacks.
Would it have picked up on this, do you think?
100%. I wish my program would already be up. We're not launching until next week. I've got a dozen agencies on board, Trace. I just unloaded a major Northeast agency with over 2,700 sworn. This is America's early warning system.
What's America's early warning system, says the former Israeli special ops guy, Aaron Cohen, saying that he's unleashing a surveillance on us that'll detect these things before they happen. So this will flag you if you happen to say certain things. And this guy just so happens, now they're going to release this tech right when it just so happens that this mass shooter has all the things that the Republican neocon establishment hates, right? He's trans. So now we're going to flag all the trans people. So anybody who might be trans is going to get flagged. And, anybody who's anti-Israel, that's going to be top of the list, especially some of the things that this guy said, on the writings on the guns and in his manifesto, which we'll go over here in a minute. But they're going to go after anybody who says anything anti-Israel. They're going to be flagging you. They're going to be flagging us. They're flagging all of us. Anti-Israel sentiment, anti-Trump sentiment is going to get flagged. He's like loving Russia, learning Cyrillic, not even Russian. That's going to get flagged, right? Oh, you must be, because, the neocons, even though Trump says he wants to end the war and reestablish relationships with Russia. I mean, the rest of the neocons, they're all about just keeping that war going. So all of these things are going to get flagged by Gideon. And that's not the only spyware that's going to be out there. They're actually unleashing several on us. And there's others that are already out there circulating around that are meant to flag us like Minority Report style. Let's go over the fact that this video was released. Again, when have you ever seen this much footage or this much information coming out about it from a shooter? Some of the things that were written on these weapons: burn Israel, Israel must fall, 6 million wasn't enough, destroy HIAS, which is a Jewish refugee aid organization, Jew gas, he has it written on some of these. He's got kill Donald Trump on there, kill Trump now. He has nuke India. I don't know. He's got McVeigh on there. Things like for the children. A lot of stuff that was just written all over the weapons. And now in the manifesto, so they're going to be flagging, they're going to flag any phrase that they think, I'm sure there was Free Palestine on one of them. Let's see, did I actually see any sort of, I think in the manifesto, he kind of says something like that. But of course, they're going to be flagging any and all of this. Now let's talk about this manifesto. When have you seen a manifesto come out so quickly? One thing that's really odd about this manifesto is it's written in Cyrillic. Robin or Robert Westman, whatever you want to call him, he was not Russian, 23 years old, and somehow was able to write this many pages in Russian to where it's translatable and it makes sense. And he even says in the manifesto, I don't really know Russian. I'm just kind of, as he's writing in Russian, and he's like, I don't really know it. So this is some of the stuff this has been translated. This was ran through AI for translation, ran it through multiple AI to ensure that it was translated correctly. And AI all said it was translated correctly. So translatable Russian at 23 years old. I don't know. That's really strange to me. I don't know very many 23-year-olds who can write fluently in any language. Even unless I actually don't know very many 23-year-olds who can write fluently, even in their second language. If they have a second language at home, they often cannot write in it. They can talk in it, they understand, but they can't write in the language. So, and especially a language that doesn't use the, our same alphabet, but uses a completely different alphabet. That's just bizarre and strange to me. I'm just going to say it's just strange to me. So some of the manifesto, I'm going to read a little bit of it, of the translation. It's awful, but I think it's good for us to understand what they're putting out there, because they've put this out there for a reason. Manifestation of thoughts. He says, I've had thoughts of mass murder for a long time. I'm very conflicted with writing this journal. I need to get my thoughts out without getting put on a watch list. He says. So he says, at times in the manifesto, he talks about having gone to, he's like, I don't want to go to a therapist. If I go to a therapist and talk to anybody about this, they're going to flag me. They're going to call the FBI. They're going to put me on a watch list. Meanwhile, what we know is he was trans, right? And actually was able to legally change his gender with his mother's help. And so in order to do that, I believe you have to get treatment. And I think if you're trans, you're getting treatment, right? So part of that is going to a psychologist, a psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever. Part of the process is doing that. So he clearly did go to mental health counseling. You can't be trans without it. So what's that about, right? So here's a person that went through all of that, and this was never brought up in the sessions, nothing like that. I mean, just really, really bizarre. It says, as of lately, I've really let myself go, indulging in every mass shooting video I can find. My interest in specifically school shootings started, I think, in the 7th grade, he says. He also says, I think that committing a mass shooting is not the right thing to do. I cannot let myself do anything like that, but G-effing-D, I'm going to try to censor it a little bit. It feels so good to indulge in the thoughts. I have so many reasons why I cannot do it. I can't do it to my family. I love them and they love me. I simply can't do it to them. He also says, funny story, like it would probably be unsettling and suspicious if FBI or someone saw my YouTube history, but I don't think it's weird enough for law enforcement to step in. So, that Gideon's going to be scouring our YouTube history now. It says, I'm writing in Cyrillic text, but English in phonetics. I also sprinkle some Russian words, I think. Terrible grammar and spelling. So I don't actually know what language. I guess he's writing in Cyrillic. I thought it was Russian. I know Russian uses Cyrillic text, but he's saying he's not writing in Russian. But so I don't know. But he says, I've been learning Russian for many years, but I never really learned. I also think I might already suffer. I also think I might already suffer that I could write in Cyrillic very inconsistently. But hey, it works for me, LOL. No, he wrote it. He wrote this manifesto just fine. We're able to translate it and understand it. Says, I think the reason I've let myself go lately is my fear of health complications. I've been smoking and vaping. So they're going to be now going after the smoking and the vaping. It's like anything that Republicans, they could just like bake anything. If they could just make the perfect shooter to just target all the things that various different factions of the neocon right, what they want to target, then they just kind of baked it all into this one person. And they're like, yeah, and he vapes all the time too. So we got to stop those vapors, and we got to stop the trans, and we got to stop the anti-Trumpers, and we got to stop the Russians, and we got to stop the anti-Semites, right? I mean, it's just too perfect. He goes on to talk about, he fantasizes about Sandy Hook. He fantasizes about Boulder, or is it Aurora? What was the first? Columbine? Fantasizes about all of these various different shootings, saying that he prefers to shoot kids because they're helpless, and he thinks that would be great, which is just awful to think about. He also says, I have a loving family and a good support system of people that want to see me thrive. For some reason, the fact that I have a pretty good life and the fact that I want to kill people have never correlated to me. I simply do not really care about my life, only caring about the impact on other people. All the more reason for them to spy on us, right? They're going to be like, wow, this guy had no criminal history. There were no, nothing to flag him in that way. So they're just going to instead use it as an excuse to flag all of us, because here's somebody with no criminal record and he went and did this. And now they're going to be unleashing this spyware on all of us. And they're going to say, it doesn't matter. You could have come from a good family. He came from a good family. So we have to spy on all of you. I mean, don't you understand? We can't profile or think, well, there might be just all of you. And if you've made any statements, if you are confused about your gender, if you're anti-Israel, if you praise Russia in any way, I mean, all of these things. And if you vape, you're going to be potentially flagged. He says, with regard, now this is where it's like, baked perfectly into this 23-year-old Cyrillic text journal. I just find that so odd. And the fact that it was released, it's almost like, did he really write this? Okay. Says, with regards to my motivations behind the attack, I can't really put my finger on a specific purpose. It definitely wouldn't be for racism or white supremacy. Those fools seem to always get clowned and jailed. I don't really like blaming groups of people of color. I don't give enough of a shit about them to take my life over them. If I did carry out, so he says right there, I don't have any racial motivation. I'm not a white nationalist, right? People on the right are often accused of being white nationalists. He says, no, I'm not a white nationalist. I'm not going to target any group of people. But he says, if I did carry out something rash, motivations would most likely be against filthy Zionist Jews. That's what he says. And then he goes on to use some slurs about them. Yes. And he says, Free Palestine in the journal. There you go. So, anybody else suspicious about this? This just seems a little bit too perfect for those who are trying to go out there and censor us and silence us and just go any and all the groups that they think are just dangerous individuals, right? They're saying trans, dangerous individuals. Certainly there has been an absolute insanity in our society when it comes to the gender identity, gender fluidity, parents being told that they have to affirm their child's identity, when they're 14 years old and saying things like, I think I'm a boy or I think I'm a girl or whatever. We've just gone way too far and it's insane. But prior to this, trans people have existed for a long time and we haven't had, before this kind of push on the kids to be trans, we haven't seen, people weren't paying any attention to trans. And now suddenly there's a lot of attention being paid. There's been a disproportionate number of mass shootings done by trans. And that's being pointed out right now. And, obviously, anybody who's trans, my big suspicion is they're on medication. And I think when you put any kid on any sort of psychosomatic drug, what do you think is going to happen to their brain? People are sticking their kids, they've got developing brains, and they're putting their kids on all kinds of, medications to change their brains because my kid's too hyper. My kid can't focus. My kid's depressed, right? And then they stick these kids on all of these drugs and they think that there's not going to be any sort of consequence to that. I think there's probably a consequence to that. And I think that's probably the most logical thing to be looking at first and foremost is what kind of drugs are you pumping into your child? And what do you think that's going to do to their developing brain? Because it makes sense to any rational thinking person for just 2 seconds that if you pump them full of drugs, it's probably not going to be positive, not when they're still developing. But yeah, we do it. Society says it's okay. And sure, maybe there are some circumstances where, there are cases where somebody does have something very severe and they do need something to regulate. But these days it feels like so many parents are just pumping their kids full of all kinds of things. And yeah, so I think when we see this rise of mass shootings happening, the one thing that needs to be asked, which of course we're not ever allowed to ask, there's HIPAA violations with it. It's also, how dare you, demonize people who might have mental illness or who might be suffering from depression or whatever it might be. But that's not what's going on. What's going on is we just want to know, did you pump them full of drugs? And did these drugs have some sort of an effect on them that made them go crazy, that made them have these really bizarre thoughts from the time they're in the 7th grade? I mean, this guy said, since I was in the 7th grade, I've been fantasizing about death and destruction. Well, what kind of drug was he on in the 7th grade? I mean, can we ask that question and get an answer? And if we're seeing a disproportionate number of trans school shooters, and this is what we're seeing in the news now, it's the trans. No, trans kids, for whatever reason, whether they're trans because they're genuinely trans or whether they're, and that is, there is a genuine mental disruption, a mental illness of very, very rare. I don't think it's to the level, at least I don't think it's to the level, it's coming out a lot. It's like all these kids think they're trans. And so it's like, look, okay, this does exist. This mental illness does exist. How could it be this many of you? And so this must be a societal cultural push, but at the same time, maybe not. There's a possibility that we have been pumping so many different things into our kids in the food, the hormones alone in the food, that could be changing the kids' brain chemistry. We already know that the kids have extremely low testosterone levels for the young kids. We're seeing these hormonal changes in the younger generations. And those are the kids that are not on any sort of psychosomatic drugs. And they're not the kids that think they're trans. They're just normal kids. And they're sitting there still with low rates, low, when they're testing them, low hormones, low, all kinds of things that are biologically different than their previous generations. Well, it could be because we put hormones in everything. I mean, our chickens are so fat they can't even walk. We pump them full of all kinds of hormones. The cows are huge. The milk, I mean, kids are drinking the milk and the milk is full of hormones. Eggs, everything's got hormones, let alone the pesticides, let alone the vaccine schedule for kids. I mean, let alone all of the different microwaves. Cell phones. When I was a kid growing up, we didn't have cell phones that we were sleeping right next to on our pillows or holding it up to our brains. So yeah, maybe there is something going on that is harming the proper development of a young person's brain. And then on top of it, we say, well, then there's, rather than actually thinking maybe society and the government has allowed our kids to be poisoned with all kinds of microwaves and hormones, rather than thinking there might be something, and being pumped full of, all kinds of injections from the time they're born. Instead of looking at any of that, we say, oh, something's wrong with my kid. Pump them full of more drugs. And oh, now they think they're a different gender. Pump them full of more drugs. So when you're pumping these kids full of drugs, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, not good things. That's for sure. Not good things. So for one to blame this, I'm seeing some groups blaming it on trans. And I don't think this is a function of, trans people are just violent and they're out there trying to kill kids in schools. It's that we're pumping people full of drugs. And this is the side effect of doing that to people. Mental, biological, pharmaceutical experimentation. What do you think is going to happen to them? But so obviously, I think we need to be looking way more into that, way more into all that. I do also think there could be, and this is one of those age-old discussions since the beginning of time, since the first school shooting that we really paid attention to at Columbine. Since then, the discussion has been around violent video games, and a lot of people have dismissed it. I don't think we should really dismiss it totally. I mean, I think if you are, again, sticking a child in front of these video games, you're pumping them full of hormones, you're pumping them full of drugs, and then you stick them in front of a TV where they're playing virtual shooter, and they're fantasizing about that. And, what do you, none of that can be good. And now I'm not saying we ban any of it. I'm not into banning things, but I'm saying as a society, we should probably have a discussion about that. Is that something we really should be showing our children? Is that something that is healthy for them? Do you sit your 5-year-old in front of horror films just by chance? I'm just wondering, do you sit them down and have them watch all kinds of different horror films and then send them off to bed? No, you don't, because it screws up their brain. It's going to mess them up. So you don't do that. But parents don't really stop to think about the shoot 'em up games and, these other violent video games. And so maybe, and I'm not sitting here trying to blame it on the video games, but, when you screw up a brain and you stick them in front of visual stimulation all the time, what do you think is going to happen to them? So that's what I think we should be looking at. But of course, that's not what's going on. These discussions are happening, but really what's happening, the thing we have to pay attention to, really we should be focusing on that discussion. What are we pumping into our kids emotionally, mentally, chemically, right? All of these things. What are we doing to our kids? But then Instead, what the government is doing is saying, oh, well, we're just going to have to start surveilling all of you. We're just going to have to start looking at through all of your search histories, phrases you might be using. Oh, you use Free Palestine? Well, you know what? The shooter used that. And so now I've got to flag you and watch you and put you on a watch list. This is like 9/11 all over again. And then, oh, you said you don't like Israel? You're flagged. Oh, you don't like the government? You don't like the president of the United States? You're flagged. You don't like Trump? Flagged. Trump's not going to be president forever. When Democrats get a hold of these tools, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to be using them for their narrative. Today, it's going to be used by the Republicans in their narrative. Oh, well, you were too friendly. Think you fantasized about Russia. You fantasized about Palestine. You fantasized about Nazis. You know, he even said at one point in his manifesto something about Nazis. So they're going to say, oh, or Hitler. Oh, if you even praise Hitler, what are they calling? What do they think praising Hitler is? They're going to say, if you even just say something like Nazi Germany under Hitler had an extremely fast economic turnaround, that it was one of the most, if not the most impressive economic turnaround in world history. You're praising Nazis. You're flagged. There you go. You're on a terrorist watch list. So get ready to be put on a terrorist watch list for saying pretty much anything and everything, because they crafted this shooter to be anything and everything they, in this current administration, the powers that be, in this, more right-wing neocon kind of wet dream, they got everything they wanted in this guy. And then the next administration will use the tools. They don't even need a shooter because the tools will be there. Gideon will be out there spying on all of us. And the next administration just has to tweak it a little bit, but one thing won't change. You can't be anti-Israel. Because if you are, you're going to get flagged. You're going to be put on a watch list. And who knows what they're going to do with all of that. So this just looks a little bit too perfect. And it's a little bit too much information for my liking. For me, we've been begging for, where are the Epstein files? We've been begging for any information. The Las Vegas shooter, how much information do you have on that? Not this much. And this came out within moments. And it's been years since the Las Vegas shooting. We can't get any information. Are you kidding me? The only other time I could think of that we were given this much quick access was that New Orleans, the guy that they claimed had a ISIS flag, right? You saw the truck driving down the road. The video showed a pole in the back, but maybe like a flag, or it looked like a jacket actually hanging from the pole. But then suddenly, moments later, we get a big ISIS flag laid out on the ground, right? And we also get a reporter going into his apartment, looking around his apartment just within a day, right? Looking around, saying, oh, look at the Quran. The Quran is all over the place. It's the Quran. And it was like, are you kidding me? When have we ever gotten access to a shooter's home like this within moments? And just so happens there's the Quran all over the place and a prayer rug. And then it just so happens that what looked like a jacket flying on the back of a pole is suddenly spread out and it's an ISIS flag. Like, give me a break. The guy that ran his car into a group of people. So that's the only time I could think of that we had this kind of quick information, and it was for an agenda. And now we're getting all of this quick information for another agenda. And that agenda is to spy on all of us. That agenda is to ensure that we maintain the narrative line, that we don't deviate from what they don't want us to deviate from, that we don't speak up against Israel, that we don't talk bad about Trump, that we don't talk, that here's all these things that we're not allowed to do now. And we can't be, you're a little bit too pro-Russia. You learned, that alone is so strange. How did this kid learn this great of Russian to be able to write an entire journal in it? Something just smells off on this whole thing. Keep your eyes open, everybody. Do not go into anything blind. Always think about what is the ulterior motive. Why are they giving us this information? That is the one question we should always be asking every single time. Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson show, which you
We are going to be looking at some disturbing videos, strange and odd news stories, and as always, let's go ahead and get right into today's video. When it came to the shooting that took place in Minneapolis, again, absolutely horrific. 2 children lost their lives, over 17 people injured, if not more. But upon looking at this individual's video that caused this horrific incident, it became clear that there's something more here, something a lot more. Now, as it has come out, this individual that caused this horrific incident, Robert Westman, he had a YouTube channel with videos that were up for a suspiciously long amount of time, even though the videos had a lot of hate, a lot of violence, and had all the perfect keywords: anti-Trump, anti-Israel, even anti-India, and so forth. He even had on one of his rifles released a list. So if you're the type of person still talking about the files, you're now considered a violent conspiracy theorist. You see how that works. We saw something like this back in 2016 when it came to certain emails in a pizza place. A lot of people were talking about it. It wouldn't die down, even though they released the fact checkers. So what do? Well, somebody from New Hampshire drives all the way to New York and they fire upon this pizza place. They are arrested. And essentially, this talking point of a certain gated pizza now becomes a dangerous, violent conspiracy theory. Let's also not forget that this individual recently lost his life to a cop in a traffic stop. He was shot by a cop, and also, come to find out, he was also an actor. So again, all the key. Oh, and BlackRock, can't forget BlackRock. One of his assault rifles said sponsored by BlackRock. So again, if you speak out against BlackRock in any way, shape, or form, now that they are the leaders of the World Economic Forum, interesting timing, again, you're considered a dangerous conspiracy theorist. Well, now it's about to get a whole lot worse.
Correct. I am now about to launch America's first ever AI threat detection platform built specifically for law enforcement. It scrapes the internet 24/7 using an Israeli-grade ontology to pull specific threat language and then routes it to local law enforcement. It's a 24/7 detective. It never sleeps, and it's going to get us in front of these attacks.
Would it have picked up on this, do you think?
100%. I wish my program would already be up. We're not launching until next week. I've got a dozen agencies on board, Trace. I just unloaded a major Northeast agency with over 2,700 sworn. This is America's early warning system.
Will not see it. They will still refuse to see what's happening here. They'll say things like, oh, it's just a conspiracy theory. Nothing's happening here. What you're talking about will have no ramifications for the future. And now we have individuals like this releasing an AI system called Gideon that will pretty much have us living in like the Minority Report. Oh, you are saying release the files a little too much? Well, we're going to come to your home to make sure you're not doing any criminal type of activity. Oh, you're talking out against a country that begins with the letter I, our greatest ally? Well, we're going to go ahead and come to your home and make sure you're not doing any type of criminal activity or anything illegal.
Your body cams will be transmitting that. The police will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording, watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on.
Background and development: Gideon was created by Aaron Cohen, a former Israeli Defense Forces Special Operations veteran and counterterrorism expert. I actually have a video coming out tomorrow on my other channel, Seconds of Horror, that speaks about these former Israeli Defense Forces individuals. They are in a company called Black Cube. We always hear about the Black Rock, the Blackstone. It's always the Black Cube of Satan, Black Cube worship, where there is a group that's really involved in a lot of things, a lot of affairs. The rabbit hole runs very deep. And again, this organization is called Black Cube. But this goes on to say that Cohen, who runs a security consulting firm, drew inspiration from Israel's counterterrorism strategies, which heavily rely on behavioral profiling and open source intelligence. He pitched Gideon as a Palantir quality system, referencing Palantir Technologies, a data analytics firm known for its work with United States intelligence and law enforcement, emphasizing high engineering standards for real-time threat prediction. So again, this is nothing more, nothing less than the Minority Report. And as somebody that uploads YouTube videos, first my videos get scanned through an AI system, and if the AI thinks I said something wrong, they will limit the videos, meaning it won't get pushed out there. So I had to have a review done by a human reviewer who will correct the mistakes of AI. So what if this Gideon AI system thinks I said something I did not, and they still send law enforcement? I do also find it very interesting that the Minority Report also had a character named Gideon too. It's always in your face. They're always telling you the truth in plain sight, what they're going to go ahead and do ahead of time. But when it comes to this Black Cube group, like I said, I am going to make a bigger video on this. But the rabbit hole is very interesting. And this individual right here, they basically give a little bit of information if you can read between the lines. And again, Black Cube is comprised of all ex-Israeli Defense Force members. That is very important to note, given the fact that, again, that is exactly who Aaron Cohen is.
Have you heard of the Black Cube? Not a black box. No, a black box. So usually in like AI and computing, that's usually what is referred to as kind of like the part of the algorithm that the public isn't aware of. So like at Google, because I worked in tech for a bit. And so what they'd always say at Google is like, well, that's the little black box of the algorithm. That's what people don't know. They don't know, they know the levers that pull the other parts of the algorithm, right? So have you heard of the Black Cube? Because I think this one might actually be far more instrumental in changing the algorithm. And this isn't like a hypothetical Black Cube. Do you guys know what I'm talking about yet? It's a company, a really, really weird looking company, a surveillance company. They say they craft narratives, and they were involved in discrediting victims of predator. Wait a second. We'll clarify this more soon, but if you're picking up what I'm putting down, you're picking up what I'm putting down.
Now, I strongly believe that all these hoaxes that we were seeing in a span of days involving shootings or shooters at universities, high schools, middle schools, elementary schools were nothing more than just AI testing the system. Isn't it just interesting that we get news like this on August 26th? A wave of active shooter hoaxes at universities bring panic and turmoil to the start of the school year, only one day prior to what took place in Minneapolis. And if you look at this photo that they use for this news article, it even looks like AI. This video was uploaded by Aaron Cohen official, Aaron Cohen himself, who suspiciously looks like AI himself. And they were talking about how they're going to use this Gideon in case a mass incident would occur. Check out this video.
Aaron Cohen, Gideon AI trailer. Let's play it very quickly.
Gideon is the first real-time AI system built to detect threats online before they become attacks. Anonymous networks flagging behavior, predicting danger. We don't get a second chance. Let's not miss the next one.
15 seconds, Aaron. You're talking about stopping mass shootings, attacks in Boulder before they start.
Trace, I'm building the first AI-driven threat prediction platform for law enforcement. They're flying blind right now. I've got an elite team of engineers from Palantir. I've got law enforcement agencies lined up. 76% of these mass attackers posted some type of grievance online. This is America's early warning detection system. If you're a chief out there, reach out to me and get on my pilot. And if you're a VC, I'm about to open my seed round. Partner with me and let's make America safe again and get cops the tools they need.
They have been warming us up with this idea for quite some time now. They are creating a problem and giving us a solution, and that solution is an AI nanny state. But in other news, I do find it very funny that while they're going above and beyond when it comes to surveillance, this news came out about 2 days ago. The CDC quietly scaled back a surveillance program for foodborne illnesses. As of July 1st, a critical surveillance program is monitoring for only 2 pathogens instead of the usual 8. Now, we weren't made aware of this because this news, again, is just coming out about 2 days ago, but like it said, it quietly did this change. So going further, the only pathogens that they're going to go ahead and monitor will be Salmonella and the Shiga toxin-producing E. coli. A spokesperson for the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention told NBC News. These are the pathogens that they will no longer be monitoring, and interestingly enough, one of them happens to be Listeria, and we always hear in the news how there's a Listeria outbreak with deli meats, with hamburger, and so forth, cheese, and now they're no longer going to be watching for it. The article goes on to say that some of them can lead to severe or life-threatening illnesses for newborns and people who are pregnant or weaken immune systems. There were 10 states that were required to monitor for these pathogens because they had a massive outbreak, but now they're no longer required, but they can go ahead and do it on their own if they want to. The article goes on to say that food safety experts worry that the move, which hasn't previously been made public, I wonder why, could make it harder for public health officials to understand how common foodborne illnesses are or notice whether cases are rising. So that is very telling. A lot of people could be sick with something like, again, listeria. There could be a massive outbreak, but you wouldn't know any better because they're no longer being monitored. This doctor was quoted as saying the CDC will be backing off on one of their best surveillance systems. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because almost all of this food is fake. It's not real. So that's why they're not looking for these pathogens. Have you had chicken? I just had fried chicken recently, and I was pulling it apart, and it was so stringy. It looked like mozzarella cheese. And I noticed in a lot of these locations, it doesn't have to be one location, it's all the same. They're not worried about it because these pathogens are not attacking the fake food like they would the real food. This is a sick and disgusting world, and now the CDC is not taking pathogens like listeria seriously, even though it was spreading all throughout news and media just how much it was rising. Cases were rising all across certain meats and deli, again, everywhere. But going back to these hoaxes being a test for AI, check out this video. This was only posted a day ago.
At 11 in Fairfax County, help is just a phone call away.
But these days, who or what picks up may surprise you. Katie Lesso explains from the 911 Dispatch Center.
We are inside what's considered the heartbeat of emergency response in Fairfax County, the 911 Center. They take about 3,000 calls a day, and now the future is calling in the form of AI.
This is Fairfax County Police and Fire. How may I assist you today?
Soon, is this AI? This is who you'll be chatting with.
I am the non-emergency automated assistant here to help the caller.
When you call the non-emergency line in Fairfax County.
It's not obvious that it's AI. It actually sounds very much like a person.
Drew Clark is the Assistant Director of Operations. He took us inside the Department of Public Safety Communications Center in Fairfax County.
This is where all the magic happens.
He's been working in the 911 Center for more than a decade. Do you ever think there'd be a day that you'd be using AI?
When I started in 2013, AI wasn't even a consideration, right? I remember when we got text to 911 in 2016, and we were like, that was the craze.
Since then, the number of calls has only grown, and last year they started looking at ways to balance the scale for the 40 people working these phones every day.
60% of those calls are non-emergency calls for service.
They decided to test out AI strictly for when calls come in on the non-emergency line. They're not the first.
Arlington County 911, what's the location of the emergency?
Arlington County adopted an AI system for non-emergency calls in 2023. Clark says these systems not only lighten the load,
they have a time to breathe in between calls because the AI agent is triaging calls that they really shouldn't be getting in the first place.
But it also gets people answers faster.
They automatically get someone to triage their call.
You can ask for a real person at any point.
If at any point your non-emergency becomes an emergency, it will recognize that and transfer you automatically.
He says it'll take keywords like if you say someone is hurt or a child is missing. Right now it operates in English and Spanish, but more languages are on the way as AI grows.
Is there a time and place where AI is answering emergency 911 calls?
Not in Fairfax County, not right now. A lot of us, this is why we started in 911, is to help save lives. And so we're not going to use an AI agent to process something that's critical in those life-saving moments. We're going to use our greatest resource, which is our 911 professionals.
Right now, it's still in the pilot phase. They plan to test it out 2 more times before they implement it this fall. Again, it will only be used for non-emergency calls. In Fairfax County, I'm Katie Lasso, WUSA 9.
So yeah, this is wild. This is absolutely wild. And in the pit of my stomach, I just feel like we're going to start seeing more and more events. Also, then go ahead and push out this AI nanny state through Parental, Gideon, and all these other things just to have this AI control. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, please subscribe.
Breaking news, mom won't talk. talk. Uh-oh. The mom here could be in some big, big trouble with the law, folks. We're talking about the terrible tragedy that happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Annunciation Catholic School Church. This guy right here, or female, whatever you want to call this individual, Robert Westman, did the shooting, self-inflicted afterward to himself or herself. 2 children dead, multiple people injured. Mom, Mary Grace Westman, authorities trying to reach mom, and mom won't speak to authorities. Uh-oh. Mary here apparently has some explaining to do when it comes to this individual here who worked at a cannabis shop, obtained a firearm, opened fire. This individual used to be Robert Westman, the shooter. And then in mom in 2020 had the courts filed a petition to have the name changed from Robert to Robin. Whoa. And mom used to work at the church school years ago before retiring. Mom has a condo in Naples, Florida. Mom divorced the husband back in 2012. We're doing a deep dive on this individual. But authorities speak today. They give a major update when it comes to this terrible tragedy that happened in Minnesota. I'm going to share the press conference details. Apparently, there's hundreds and hundreds of pages, manifesto stuff. Hopefully we get that information to find out, what was this individual thinking and why. Apparently this individual was mad at the world, mad at the president of the United States, had some Hail Hitler type crazy talk in the past, and also things on bullets and writings. Apparently was not happy with the transition over from male to female. Maybe mom has a lot to explain about that and why mom did that while this person was a minor. Let's talk, folks. I'm going to share some information that authorities put out, their words, and we'll further discuss. Check it out.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian O'Hara, Brian, O''Hara. I am the Minneapolis Police Chief. This has been a very difficult week for our community here in Minneapolis. As we continue to move along this difficult path of healing, I want the community to know that even in the face of evil, the Minneapolis Police Department and all of our law enforcement partners collectively stand together with you. We stand with our families that have been affected by this senseless violence, as well as with the parish community. We will continue to be here for all of you. The men and women of the Minneapolis Police Department who responded yesterday did not hesitate. At 8:27 a.m., 911 began to receive initial calls of shots being fired. By 8:31, a Minneapolis police officer in a regular uniform with no helmet, no SWAT gear, ran into the church and was met by a parishioner who directed him towards where the gunman had been. The parishioner later told me that was the first time that he, the children, and others there had any sense that they might be safe and survive. The members that responded yesterday exemplified the motto that is on the Minneapolis Police Squad cars: to protect with courage and to serve with compassion. All of our law enforcement partners, first responders, and many children, members of the school staff, and parishioners of Annunciation Catholic Church all showed incredible courage yesterday in the face of unspeakable horror. As the investigation continues, we will continue working alongside our county, state, and federal law enforcement partners as we continue to be critical as we piece together exactly what happened. At this time, we have identified a total of 20 victims that had injuries resulting from gunfire, including the 8 and 10-year-old who were killed yesterday. 15 of the injured are children between the ages of 6 and 15. 3 of those injured are adults in their 80s. Those who remain hospitalized need all of our support as we continue to pray for a speedy recovery for all of our victims. During the processing of the scene at Annunciation Church yesterday, 3 shotgun shells were recovered, along with approximately 116 rifle rounds. 1 live round was recovered from a handgun that appears to have malfunctioned as the shooter attempted to use it and became stuck in the chamber. There were 4 search warrants that were executed yesterday. 1 at the church, the others were executed at residences believed to be associated with the shooter. One of those residences was in the city of Minneapolis, a second one was in Richfield, and a third one was in St. Louis Park, which are both bordering municipalities. Additional evidence was recovered as a result of these warrants. Literally hundreds of pieces of evidence have been recovered thus far, which include electronic devices that will be further searched and processed. It now becomes our job collectively with all of law enforcement to process that evidence. And so this investigation will continue, and we will follow all of the evidence to its logical conclusion. I am aware, however, that this may not ultimately provide the answers that our public is looking for. When something terrible happens, the public expects law enforcement to provide some explanation for what happened. But the reality is, this is an unthinkable, completely senseless act. Violence perpetrated against children worshiping at Mass. And no investigation, no evidence will ever be able to make sense of such an unthinkable tragedy. That being said, we will do our best to determine and identify a specific motive. What we have seen so far is this is an individual who, unfortunately, like so many other mass shooters that we have seen in this country too often and around the world, had some deranged fascination with previous mass shootings and very disturbing writings that demonstrate hatred towards many different individuals and different groups of people. And he fantasized about the plans of other mass shooters. Unfortunately, again, this has become all too common in our society. That being said, we know ultimately the purpose of the shooter's actions was to obtain notoriety for the shooter themselves. That being said, I have only said the name of this shooter once, and I'm asking members of the media to stop saying the shooter's name. That was the whole purpose of why he did this heinous act, to obtain that notoriety for themselves. As schools in our city are beginning to start this week and next, we are working with all of our law enforcement partners, county sheriffs, state troopers, and surrounding municipalities that are helping the city of Minneapolis as we step up police presence both in and around schools and around all of our houses of worship in the city. Many of our law enforcement partners are also supplementing patrols, and we could not be more grateful. This has truly been a collective effort in partnership with our community. We also must say that we will be forever in debt to all of the doctors, nurses, and paramedics who responded, who are caring for these victims in this incident. I cannot tell you how incredibly grateful we are for all of the love and support that has been pouring in from all around the country, both for the first responders who initially responded, entered that church, and dealt with the unthinkable, and for all of the victims and families that have received that love and support as well. The Minneapolis Police Department and our community have a long road ahead of us to heal, and we need everyone to continuing to show their support after the cameras once again leave this city. I'd like to invite up the Acting United States Attorney for the District of Minnesota, Joe Thompson.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Thompson. I'm the Acting United States Attorney for the District of Minnesota. Yesterday, Minnesota was attacked. It was an attack, first and foremost, on our children and our families, an attack at a school and in a place of worship. It was also an attack on our city, our state, and our country. The U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, ATF, and other federal law enforcement are working with state and local partners to investigate this heinous act. Our investigation is twofold. First, we are seeking to confirm what we believe to be true, which is that the shooter acted alone and that no one else was involved, that the threat died with the shooter yesterday. We believe that to be true, but we'll leave no stone unturned to ensure the safety of our community. Second, we are investigating the motive, why and how this happened. The shooter left behind hundreds of pages of writings that describe the shooter's plan, writings that describe the shooter's mental state, and more than anything, writings that describe the shooter's hate, pure, indiscriminate hate. The shooter expressed hate towards almost every group imaginable. The shooter expressed hate towards Black people. The shooter expressed hate towards Mexican people. The shooter expressed hate towards Christian people. The shooter expressed hate towards Jewish people. In short, the shooter appeared to hate all of us. The shooter's heart was full of hate. There appears to be only one group that the shooter didn't hate, one group of people who the shooter admired. The group were the school shooters and mass murderers that are notorious in this country. The shooter idolized some of the most notorious school shooters and mass murderers in our country's history. I won't name them, just like I won't name the shooter. They don't deserve to have their names remembered. As I said, the shooter left behind hundreds of pages of writings. There is a lot to digest, and we'll know more in the coming days and weeks as we've had an opportunity to go through them. But reading them, one thing is clear. It's going to be hard to hear, but it's important to the question of why this happened. More than anything, the shooter wanted to kill children, defenseless children. The shooter was obsessed with the idea of killing children. The shooter saw the attack as a way to target our most vulnerable among us while they were at their most vulnerable at school and at church. I won't dignify the shooter's words by repeating them. They are horrific and vile. But in short, the shooter wanted to watch children suffer. Yesterday was a tragedy for the city and our state. My heart goes out to the entire Annunciation community. Their loss is unimaginable. I want the state of Minnesota to know that when a tragedy like this occurs, we all stand together. Federal, state, and local law enforcement work together side by side. The FBI, the ATF, the BCA, Minneapolis Police Department, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, the Hennepin County Attorney's Office, including their victim advocates who have been working with the families yesterday and today. The list goes on. This has been a tough summer for Minnesota, but I take heart knowing that we all stand together in confronting this evil. Thank you. I'll turn it back to Chief O'Hara.
We'll open it up for some questions and answer what we can.
The FBI Director Kash Patel put out some details today, including that there was a threat against President Trump, that there were some messages such as Israel must fall and free Palestine, and that it is being investigated as a hate crime. There's evidence of a hate crime. Can you speak to what the FBI Director put out?
I haven't talked to Director Patel, but certainly there's evidence of hate. As I mentioned, the shooter expressed hate towards many groups, including the Jewish community and including President Trump. So obviously, as in most cases where there's a mass shooting at a house of worship or a school, federal law enforcement will work with state and local law enforcement to investigate to make sure what happened. We know what happened and we prosecute as appropriate.
I would just add to that, Matt, that there is no question in this case that this shooter intended to terrorize the children, the school members of the school community, the parishioners were inside of that church. So whatever label we want to put on it is regardless of the fact that it is very clear that this shooter had the intention to terrorize those innocent children. Sorry.
One of the manifestos, I guess, mentions a belief that the shooter was under an FBI investigation.
Federal agents storm a Florida apartment hunting for the mother of Minneapolis mass shooter Robert Westman. She's now lawyered up and refusing to talk after her son's deadly attack killed 2 kids and injured 18 others. I'm Joseph Morris, and don't forget to like and subscribe. It was just revealed that on Wednesday, August 27th, 2025, federal agents swarmed 63-year-old Mary Grace Westman's apartment in East Naples, Florida, hours after her 23-year-old son, Robert, shot up Annunciation Catholic Church in Minneapolis.
A Minnesota mass shooting investigation travels to Southwest Florida's front doorstep.
Ms. Westman, my name is Dave Christie. I'm with the FBI.
Our cameras were rolling when these agents identified themselves as FBI and called for a Miss Westman, Mary Grace Westman, the mother of the person who opened fire in Wednesday's tragic mass shooting.
So the question was, have we spoken to the shooter's parents and if there were any red flags that may have been missed? I know there were dozens of interviews that have been conducted with relatives, friends, associates of the shooter, as well as people, obviously individuals, witnesses that were present at the scene yesterday. I know we have not been successful in talking to the shooter's mother yet at this time, but there continue to be efforts made to get that done.
Wink News confirmed a Mary Grace Westman of Minneapolis owns this East Naples condo.
So Mary Grace was nowhere to be found. She's not cooperating with investigators, even as they try to figure out why her troubled son carried out this horror that ended with his own death. Police executed 4 search warrants that day, grabbing hundreds of pieces of evidence like phones and laptops. But Mary Grace's silence is raising questions. She's hired criminal defense attorney Ryan Gary, who told Fox News she's completely distraught and has no culpability. Ryan has worked cases for Colin Kaepernick on George Floyd protest lawsuits and rapper Designer on indecent exposure charges. But I want to know, why do you guys think Mary Grace is dodging the police? Some say she might be avoiding the role she played in Robert's life. Could she feel responsible for what he became? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious to hear your take. Meanwhile, Robert's father, 54-year-old James Westman, has stayed quiet. He's worked 29 years as a senior application developer for Esri, a government software contractor with C.I.A. ties. James recently removed his LinkedIn profile, which makes you wonder, is he avoiding attention, or is there more to his story? Could his high-stakes work have shaped Robert's troubled mindset in some way? Because let's rewind to 2020. At just 17 years old, Robert legally changed his name to Robin, and his mother, Mary Grace, signed off on it since he was too young to do it alone. It seemed like she supported or even encouraged his gender transition. But in a chilling YouTube posted manifesto, Robert revealed deep regret, saying, quote, "I regret being trans. I wish I was a girl. I just know I cannot achieve that body with the technology we have today. I also can't afford that," end quote. This shows someone wrestling with self-loathing, which may have fueled the hate driving his attack. Could his parents have caught the signs earlier? It's hard not to wonder what they missed as Robert's life unraveled, especially since he'd been disciplined at his job at Rise Medical Cannabis Dispensary for being late and skipping shifts, right up until August 16th, 2025. His instability was clear, yet it led to this tragedy.
9mm go bang.
And here's where it gets darker. On that Wednesday morning, Robert opened fire through the stained glass windows of Annunciation Catholic Church during a back-to-school mass. He killed 2 kids, 8-year-old Fletcher Merkel and 10-year-old Harper Moisky, and wounded 15 other children, plus 3 older parishioners. Some are still in critical condition, with at least 9 in the hospital as of Friday, August 29th. Robert knew the church well. He'd been a student at the attached school, and Mary Grace worked there as a secretary until retiring in 2021. So did he target that school because of these ties? Well, investigators seem to think so, pointing to his familiarity with the layout and his personal connection to that place through his mother. The community's left wondering how someone so tied to this church could commit such a horrific act. Now enter United States Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is investigating whether SSRIs or gender transition hormones Robert might have taken played a role.
People have had guns in this country forever. When I was a kid, we had shooting clubs at our school. People, kids, my classmates, other people would bring a .22 rifle with their guns to school and park it in the parking lot. Nobody was shooting. So there's never been a time in America, in the history of humanity, and people walked into a crowd, into a church or a movie theater or a school or a crowd of strangers and just started randomly shooting. It's happening in our country. It's not happening around the world. And there are many other countries that have comparable levels of guns that we have in this country. We had comparable levels in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and people weren't doing that. Something changed, and it dramatically changed human behavior. And one of the culprits we need to examine is whether the fact that we are the most over-medicated nation in the world, and that a lot of those are psychiatric drugs that have black box warnings on them.
What do you guys think? Could these substances have pushed Robert over the edge and many others? The father of 8-year-old Fletcher spoke out saying,
"A coward decided to take our 8-year-old son Fletcher away from us. Because of their actions, we will never be allowed to hold him, talk to him, play with him, and watch."
Revolutionary salute to our Queen Lacey for the donation to the war chest. Revolutionary way of life. Absolutely appreciate the love, Queen. It's an excellent show. Code had to pull over and listen. Blessing. I absolutely appreciate you for listening. Pay attention. But like our brothers say, please drive safely. But this absolutely is an excellent topic. These people are putting these mass shooters all over the place. Very angry young individuals that they have on these. And one thing they keep leaving out, this person also said that they didn't like black people. They was also talking about black people too. They acting like they wouldn't. But there was also a bunch of racist tones in a lot of his manifesto. But revolutions were life. Appreciate the love, Queen. Salute.
Him grow into the wonderful young man he was on the path to becoming. Fletcher loved his family, friends, fishing, cooking, and any sport that he was allowed to play. While the hole in our hearts and lives will never be filled, I hope that in time our family can find healing. I pray that the other victim's family can find some semblance of the same. I'm hopeful that all the wounded are able to make a full recovery and return home to their families. And finally, all the people, and especially the children impacted by this horrific event, are able to recover mentally and find strength to live loving, happy, and full lives. Please remember Fletcher for the person he was and not the act that ended his life. Give your kids an extra hug and kiss today. We love you, Fletcher. You'll always be with us.
Wow, the pain in those words shows the human cost of this tragedy, a stark reminder of the lives lost and forever changed. This tragedy feels like a failure on so many levels. Robert's manifesto shows a young guy drowning in regret and self-hatred with no clear way out. Mary Grace's support for his transition might have been well-intentioned, but did it miss a deeper issue? Her silence now feels like she's avoiding tough questions, even if she's grieving. James's role at Esri with its C.I.A. connections adds a strange layer. Could it have influenced Robert in some way? We don't know, but it's worth asking. RFK's drug angle raises valid concerns. SSRIs and hormones can mess with your head, especially if you're already unstable. We need better mental health resources, stricter checks on online hate, and honest conversations about gender dysphoria that don't just push one direction. This raises tough questions about whether it could have been stopped. So I'll be following up on Robert's father and what investigators uncovered in those search warrants. So please stay tuned. And if you enjoyed this video,
I looked at the data when this story was announced about school shootings in the United States, and I am going to share that with you. There's another school shooting at a Catholic school in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And the shooter, of course, they have named him. I don't know what to say when it comes to these school shootings. I have a poll question. Please be sure to answer that. I have a question for any of you that grew up during the 60s, the 70s, or the 80s. If you could tell me what was different for you at that point in time when you were in school, it will make sense when I show you the data. But this was the news that broke just the other day, another school shooting. Where did we go from here?
We're coming back on the air with breaking news out of Minneapolis. Police and the mayor holding a news conference on a shooting that unfolded this morning at a Minneapolis church, Annunciation Church, also a school pre-K to 8th grade. Let's listen in to Mayor Jacob Fry.
But to everybody out there, do not think of these as just somebody else's kids. Those families are suffering immense pain right now. Think of this as if it were your own. Every one of us needs to be wrapping our arms around these families, giving them every ounce that we can muster. These were Minneapolis families. These were American families. And the amount of pain that they are suffering right now is extraordinary. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. These are kids that should be learning with their friends. They should be playing on the playground. They should be able to go to school or church in peace without the fear or risk of violence, and their parents should have the same kind of assurance. These are the sort of basic assurances that every family should have, every step of the day, regardless of where they are in our country. I'm so deeply saddened, and I'm so sorry to the families that I know are suffering right now. My ask is to everyone, stand by them. Love them. These families have forever been changed, and we've all been changed with them. We need to do everything possible to support them through this time. We have a family resource center that has been set up. I'm grateful for all of the law enforcement agencies from a number of different jurisdictions, all the different departmental support that we've received. They're going to be working tirelessly.
You know, I have seen this man's face on the news more than I would like to. The first time was after the murder of George Floyd. I've continued to see him since then because there continues to be these incidents in Minneapolis, Minnesota, but he's the mayor there of Minneapolis, and now we are seeing him again. I am greatly, appalled at the number of school shootings that we have in this country. I am also concerned that it has become too common to the point where people are just like, oh, okay, it was another school shooting. And when I show you the data, you'll see what I'm talking about. There is something deeply broken in this country. And hopefully, maybe we can talk about it when we get to call in. This is something we can all break down, because I really want to know, for those of you who grew up in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 60s, what was different for you? Because those numbers weren't there like they are today. So there is something deeply twisted happening in this country. No other country has these numbers of school shootings. It is this one. And to the shooter, what in the world goes through your mind for you to go to a school and kill children? I know how you can go after somebody who's so innocent. How you can just, kids, babies, kids, their lives had just begun. What have they done wrong? We'll go on a little bit more here.
There's also a family resource center that is being set up as we speak to make sure that we're there for everybody. Again, to the families that are suffering, to those that have experienced loss, I'm so deeply sorry. We're going to be with you every step of the way. We love you. This kind of act of evil should never happen, and it happens far too often. The chief will provide additional details.
My name is Brian O'Hara, BRIAN, O''HARA. I am the Minneapolis Police Chief. Earlier today, just before 8:30 a.m., our city experienced an unthinkable tragedy. Minneapolis police officers responded to a report of a shooting at a mass that was happening at the Annunciation Roman Catholic Church on the block behind me. This worship service was marking the first week of school for children that are attending the Annunciation Catholic School. During the mass, a gunman approached on the outside, on the side of the building, and began firing a rifle through the church windows towards the children sitting in the pews at the mass. Shooting through the windows, he struck children and worshipers that were inside the building. The shooter was armed with a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. This was a deliberate act of violence against innocent children. And
one of the things I want to add here as well, this is why, and people don't like when I say this, but this is why I said, if I ever had a kid, I don't know that I would feel comfortable sending them to school. I said this one time on the show. I said, I don't know, I may want to homeschool them. And I know you can't shield them from everything, but I just feel like, are schools safe? Are they? The first school shooting that happened during my lifetime that I was in the US for was Columbine. That shook the country from what I remember. I just remember that was a big deal. After Columbine, I remember like my school, like they were holding like the meetings with the students to ask like, is everybody doing okay? To check in and see how everybody, was feeling. But Columbine at that time was big. Like I was like, oh my God, and would never think that this would ever happen again. But they've increased since Columbine. And everybody wants to point blame. People want to blame video games. People want to blame it's the music, it's the movies. Guys, these other countries play the same video games, watch the same movies, and listen to the same music that we do. But they're not doing this. So it has to be deeper. It has to be deeper than that.
Other people worshiping. The sheer cruelty and cowardice of firing into a church full of children is absolutely incomprehensible. Police officers from the Minneapolis Police Department immediately responded, entered the church, and attempted to provide first aid and rescue some of the children that were hiding throughout the building, while other first responders came and EMS responded to rush victims to nearby hospitals. Ages 8 and 10 were killed where they sat in the pews. Their parents have been notified. 17 other people were injured, 14 of them being children. 2 of those children are in critical condition. The coward who fired these shots ultimately took his own life in the rear of the church.
And that brings me to the shooter. And that's another thing, to do this, like I say, everything's coming out. To do this and then to end it the way that you choose to end it so that you don't have to face like justice. You need to hear this, the information that they found about the shooter.
Is Robin Westman. At one point in his life, he was Robert Westman, 23 years old, if I'm correct. It sounded like he left a manifesto. What more do we know about him, Tom? Or about them, I should say.
Yeah, sure, Tom. So we've gone through a whole host of videos.
And sorry about that. I think I said the shooter, so the shooter was male, transitioned to female.
Videos that were left behind online, as well as what he said. So the videos show a series of diaries, a series of writings, and he flips through them much the way if I were to show you a book and flip through it right now as you and I are talking. And some of it is not written in English. It's written in an Eastern European language, still trying to comb through that. There is a handwritten sketch, a diagram of a church, not clear if it's this particular church that is included in there. There are many violent things that he whispers under his breath as he's going through there. The bottom line, the themes of this in that manifesto that was referenced there by Chief O'Hara is suicidal thoughts, an apology to his family, extremely violent thoughts all throughout all of the writings and everything that we've seen. He also shows the gun magazines that perhaps were the exact magazines that he used in the shooting today. On one of them, he referenced the President of the United States saying, "Kill Donald Trump." There's other political references in there. So this is somebody who espoused a whole host of views, none of which neatly fit into any sort of box that's out there, but it is certainly incredibly violent. The FBI Director, Kash Patel, putting out a statement on social media tonight saying this is going to be investigated as a potential act of domestic terrorism and as a hate crime. Of course, with this individual being deceased, that pretty much ends that portion of the investigation.
Exactly. So he doesn't actually get to face justice. Here's the other thing, too. One of those magazines they said had killed Donald Trump on the magazine. So how do you go from you're angry with Donald Trump to going to a school to kill children? I don't make that connection. And maybe there's something that I'm missing there, but I just don't understand. I really don't get it.
Investigation right now. They would just try to see if anybody had helped them at any certain point. But as the chief alluded to here, they're not looking for anybody else at this stage. They believe that he acted alone and that those 3 weapons, a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol, were all apparently purchased legally and purchased recently. So no indication that anybody bought the weapons for him. The question for the family members and for his friends is whether or not anybody saw anything in advance and could have possibly said something. But obviously much more on that as the day develops, Tom.
Yeah. So we do have, I want to bring this up here. This is the shooter to the right here in this video. And I just want to go ahead and sound the alarm now, because check this out. This gentleman here is now talking about launching Gideon, America's first ever AI threat detection platform built for law enforcement. So here we go, folks. This right here is going to be the kicker for them to make an excuse, for them to increase surveillance. Here we go. Listen to it. He says it right here on Fox News.
Correct. I am now about to launch Gideon, America's first ever AI threat detection platform built specifically for law enforcement. It scrapes the internet 24/7 using an Israeli-grade ontology to pull specific threat language and then routes it to local law enforcement. It's a 24/7
What did he say? Using what technology? Listen.
Detection platform built specifically for law enforcement. It scrapes the internet 24/7 using an Israeli-grade ontology to pull specific.
Using Israeli-grade ontology.
Threat language and then routes it to local law enforcement. It's a 24/7 detective. It never sleeps, and it's going to get us in front of these attacks.
Would it have picked up on this, do you think?
100%.
In front of these attacks. So let me let them finish. I'm gonna tell you what this really means.
I wish my program would already be up. We're not launching until next week. I've got a dozen agencies on board, Trace. I just unloaded a major Northeast agency with over 2,700 sworn. This is America's early warning system. Correct. I am now about to.
This is my warning to all of you. This is the pre-crime move. And this is what, see, all this talk about crime, have you guys noticed this? All this talk about crime, you know, since the past like couple of months or whatever, Donald Trump sends the National Guard into DC. The DC mayor, as of earlier today, is now agreeing with Donald Trump and saying, thank you for, this is working out great. Crime is down, da-da-da. They're all getting on board. And mark my words, this is something that is going to be bipartisan. It is going to be bipartisan that they want to increase surveillance. I'm not kidding when I say I feel like we are heading towards Minority Report. If you haven't seen the movie, check it out. You should be able to watch it for free now. But that's the direction that we're moving into, guys. They want to increase surveillance. They want to watch us. I mean, you know, apparently the Patriot Act wasn't enough. And now let me talk about how this can go very, very wrong. Very, very wrong. Let's say that this type of technology, this Israeli-grade technology, goes wrong. Technology doesn't always work the way it's supposed to. We all know from experience. Let's say it makes a mistake and it is predicting that said person is about to commit a crime. Next thing you know, the police got guns facing you, aimed at you, and the technology got it wrong, and it was actually somebody else. All these years, they've been talking about facial recognition, increasing those types of things. They want to watch us. They want to control us. And by they, I mean the government. They've been wanting to do this. This stuff has been coming down the pipeline. And what will they say? Well, America's a violent country. The mayor of DC said it earlier this morning. In the press conference, she said that the crime is now down in DC because he brought the National Guard in. She's a Democrat. So what did I tell you? This is no partisan difference on this. Both parties, both of these politicians, both parties support increased surveillance. We had it under Obama. We had it under Donald Trump. And it's been continuing. And they can point to incidents like this. They can point to incidents like, you know, like the guy that shot the Israeli couple in DC. They can point to those incidents and say, this is what we need to stop. And Whitney Webb has sounded that alarm. Listen to this. I warned about the pre-crime push to stop mass shootings before they happened for years, especially during the first Trump administration. I don't think it's a coincidence that this happens just as the full extent of the Epstein-Thiel Carbine 911 relationship is being revealed. I wrote about Epstein, Theo, and Carbine, as well as Trump's previous pre-crime push after a spate of 2019 mass shootings, which then Attorney General William Barr, who launched a DOJ pre-crime program called DEEP, seemed to predict in an odd speech together in the same article. And she put it here. She said, check it out and don't fall for the latest tragedy being used to coerce you into signing away your remaining freedoms to a pre-crime surveillance state. And I could see people falling for this. I could see people saying, well, yeah, I want to be safe, so let me go ahead and sign up for this. They want to watch you. They want to control you. That's what this is. And then we got another question that we need to ask as well. We need to talk about why we have so many mass shootings, in particular school shootings in this country. When you look at the data, this is from 1999 to 2025, and we're going to go further back as well. 1999 to 2025, K through 12. Look at this. 1999, 23. These are the number of incidents, right? Watch the numbers go up as the years go by. We went from 23 in 1999 to right now, 2025 is not over, but so far it says 116. 2024, 332. It's continued to increase over the years. And I've been sounding the alarm about this, guys. This shit is not normal. We have to stop normalizing school shootings. And people have been doing it. People don't even get freaked out the way that they used to. When Columbine happened, I was freaked out. And then you'll see here, let's go further back. I was asking some of you who were around, if you grew up in the 60s, the 70s, etc. Look at this graph here. 2024 saw the second highest number of K through 12 school shooting incidents. So look at this. Over the years, if you look down here, this starts at 1970. We'll go a little further back. 1970. So you can see the number of incidents for the school shootings. There's Columbine right there. Columbine wasn't even a higher year. Look at how it has increased over the years. Sandy Hook, Parkland, Uvalde, Appalachia. Do you guys see this? I'll show you another version of this that you can see as well. A different angle here. So it shows incidents is red, victims is that deep yellow, and green is death. So if we just look at incidents alone, we go back to 1966. 9 incidents total. As we go through the years, look at this. 70s, 80s, 25, 84, 86, 17, right? Oh, excuse me. That was victims. We're looking at the red. Okay, so not even that much. But as we get to 2020, 2005, 2006, 59 incidents. We continue to go, just look at this. These are the numbers. They continue to increase. 2018, 119. 2019, 124. Let's go all the way up. 2023, 349. This is a sickness. And this should not be normalized. The hell is happening to us as a society? It continues to increase, folks. It's not going down. So, what changed? We can look at economic issues. We can look at poverty, for example. We can look at we can look at capitalism. Because I think that's what a lot of this comes down to. We can look at mental health. increase in mental health, lack of health care. I don't know, but something changed. So for those of you who are watching, if you grew up, I want to know if you grew up in the 60s, the 70s, or the 80s, what was different for you? Let me know. Let me know. Like, we can't blame entertainment. A lot of people are blaming entertainment. You can't blame entertainment anymore. There were violent movies back then too. And people in other countries also watch violent movies. Miss Ritchie says the internet. That's interesting. All right. Why does America have the most school shootings? 1,957 votes. 24% say America is a violent country. 14% say lack of mental health resources. 4% say lack of gun reform. And 58% say all of the above. Interesting. Hey guys, this was a savvy clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.
My book, The N-Word is No Secret in the Service, is in the description of every video. We also have the Runaway Slave store, link in the description. Go grab yourself a souvenir or something like that. Let's cook. Okay, people, today in Minneapolis, Minnesota, a white American man, a coward, a knuckle-dragging beast by the name of Robin Westman, 23 years of age. This is a guy who claims to be a woman or man. I don't know. He's one of them Transformers. You know, he's part of the Skittles organization, you know, that fraction of white supremacy or whatever. It's so many of these guys out there. Well, he opened fire outside a Catholic church. Now, in this Catholic church, students were attending the first mass of the school year. So this guy went to a religious building and shot it up, killed 2 children, injured 17 other people. 14 of these people that he injured were children. They say that this dude used a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol, and then he died from self-inflicted gunshot wound. He's a coward. He blew his own beak off. He should have did that before he did this, though. They believe he acted alone. And, you know, the usual suspects, typical white supremacists, Satanists, you know, knuckle-dragging beast right here, doesn't care what he do, taking children out. Condolences to their families. I hope that the others who got hit by rounds also recover. Who knows how the rest of their lives would be. And, you know, usual suspects, this is something that we just can't comprehend. But we know these people, violent white men, continue to hurt children, women, men, people at religious establishments. They don't care. These are bloodthirsty, homegrown terrorists. And nothing's going to be done about it. Now, this guy claims to be one of those Transformers. He's from the Skittles fraction of the white liberal groups in this snowball fight. We'll see if these people step up and say anything about this. They won't, okay? They won't. And, you know, these people who claim to be what he is have been very violent, you know, very violent. They claim to be all agape love and butterflies and all this other stuff. But what people have to understand is these are still white American men. And the women who claim to be this, they want to be white American men. So that's going to come with some very violent behaviors. So check this out, people. This guy here, this little Elroy type, he made a video just yesterday, about how violent black people are, just yesterday. Now, this little guy right here is a Mexican, Italian, and an Irish Catholic. Check him out.
And what I'm talking about in particular is not just the propensity of young black men for violence, which we see all the time, and we're well acquainted with that. And you see it in Chicago and in New York, and the clips go viral all the time now on Twitter and TikTok. I'm talking in particular about the brutality, because I feel like there's an extra layer there that a lot of people don't acknowledge, it's not just that it's always young black men that we see on the subway wielding a knife, or in Chicago carjacking a couple or something. It's not just that it's always the usual suspects committing the violent crimes, the property crimes, menacing the public, taking over the streets in these teen takeovers. It's the level of brutality. It is actually a matter of degree. And the scene that I'm talking about is we don't just see black violence. We see clips of brawls and battles at gas stations, in subways, in cities where black people are doing two things in particular all the time. One is they gang up on their victims. Whenever you see a brawl with black people, it's never one white guy versus one black guy. If a white guy's fighting a black guy, he's fighting a whole crowd of black people. And whether they came with that black guy or not, even if they're just bystanders, they will intervene with the black person. I saw a clip from Chicago today where a group of young black thugs are mugging people, mugging a group of white people, and a black security guard who was working for the bar or store that this happened outside of.
Ain't that something? This boy just made this video yesterday, and he gets a reminder today. Everybody gets a reminder of who the most violent, bloodthirsty, terroristic, genocide-causing human being on the planet has ever been. People who look like him.
On the Catholic Church sex abuse scandal, a Pennsylvania grand jury says more than 300 priests sexually abused more than 1,000 children and likely thousands more over 7 decades. Nikki Batiste explains how church leaders protected the priests, putting children at risk.
A trove of documents containing allegations and admissions of sexual abuse was kept locked up in what the church calls its secret archives, with the only key in the bishop's hands.
The cover-up made it impossible to achieve justice for the victims.
Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro laid out a pattern of consistent, decades-long cover-up across the 6 dioceses. The files contained strategies that were practically a playbook for concealing the truth. Among the tactics for church record-keeping, use euphemisms, never say rape, say inappropriate contact or boundary issues. Even if a priest is raping children, keep providing housing and living expenses. Above all, don't tell the police. Handle it like a personnel matter in-house. As church officials protected predator priests, careers continued to rise.
Many have been promoted. Bishop Worrell is now Cardinal Worrell.
Washington, D.C. Archbishop Cardinal Donald Worrell presided over 32 accused priests during his 18 years at the Pittsburgh Diocese. He sat down with us the night before the report's release.
During my tenure, we acted very appropriately with many times removal from ministry, totally and completely.
But according to the grand jury, in 1991, Worrell reassigned an accused priest, Ernest Payon, to the Reno Diocese. In 1995, he returned George Zerwas, a member of a pedophile ring, to ministry.
Victims filed a lawsuit against you and a few others, saying you were conspiring to cover up the abuse. Any truth to that during your time in Pennsylvania?
I would have to say that's just totally false.
We reached out to Cardinal Worrell's representatives after the report's release, and they say he stands by his interview with us. And Jeff, so far, the Vatican has not commented.
Possible at this point, Nikki, that any of the clergy involved in the alleged cover-up could face criminal charges.
Yes, if they fail to report child sex abuse allegations, they could be prosecuted.
Okay, Nikki Batiste, thank you for your work on this.
And what I'm talking about in particular is not just the propensity of young black men for violence, which we see all the time, and we're well acquainted with that.
Of completely innocent people who were murdered by the Mexican cartel. None of them were criminals. None of them were in the game. There were teachers, children, mothers, community leaders, people just trying to live their lives, but somehow they crossed paths with the wrong people. And when the cartel decided their time was up, the way they were taken, the way they were killed will stay with you. Each story is darker, each death more brutal than the last. And by the time we reach the fifth one, you'll understand why it's one that I can't get out of my head. So let's start with today's video, Brad.
Irma Hernández Cruz, manejo el taxi 554.
On July 18, 2025, 62-year-old Irma Hernandez Cruz began her shift behind the wheel of Taxi 554. She followed her usual route, starting near the Mercado Municipal and circling through the streets of Álamo Tempache, Veracruz. Irma wasn't just any taxi driver. She was a retired elementary school teacher who has spent more than 30 years educating children in rural communities. Many of her students came from poor families, and she was known to buy them notebooks and pencils with her own money. Even after retiring, she stayed active, helping her church, running errands for neighbors, and driving her taxi to support her grown children and grandchildren. That morning, she parked in her usual spot outside the market. Around noon, according to multiple witnesses, a white SUV and a motorcycle pulled up. Armed men wearing black tactical vests stepped out. One blocked her door, another janked it open. She was forced into the SUV while her taxi was left running at the curb. She vanished without a trace. 6 days later, a video began circulating on Facebook. Irma on her knees in the dirt, her hands cuffed tight in front of her, her face pale, her hair loose and messy. Around her, nearly a dozen masked men, their assault rifles aimed and ready. She reads the scripted warning to other taxi drivers. Taxi drivers, pay your fee. With the Veracruz Mafia, you don't play around or you'll end up like me. Her voice cracks mid-sentence. Authorities later confirmed she had no links to organized crime. Investigators believe her only crime was refusing to pay the extortion fees demanded by a group calling itself Mafia Veracruzana. On July 24th, police found her body at a rural ranch about 40 kilometers away. The Veracruz State Prosecutor's Office reported she likely died of a heart attack caused by the extreme torture and stress her captors inflicted on her. She was beaten so badly, her body couldn't take it.
En Sonora, la Fiscalía de Justicia confirmó que 4 mujeres asesinadas en Hermosillo son la madre y sus 3 hijas.
On July 4th, 2025, along a stretch of Highway 100 in Hermosillo, Sonora, police discovered the body of a 29-year-old woman. She had been executed with a single gunshot to the head. Her 3 young daughters, 11-year-old twin sisters, and their 9-year-old sister were missing. The next morning, an anonymous tip came in to Buscadora por la Paz, a volunteer search group in Sonora. The voice on the line gave no name, just directions. Following the tip, searchers returned to the same stretch of highway. Under the twisted shade of a mesquite tree, they saw them. The sisters lay side by side in the dirt, one twin's arm draped over the youngest as if shielding her. But both shields and prayers had failed. 2 were executed at point-blank range. The youngest also showed signs of severe violence, though authorities have not publicly confirmed the exact cause of her death. Reports claim the children's mother once lived with a man linked to Los Matasalas, although this is not confirmed by the authorities. Guys, whether or not she remains connected, the nature of the crime, killing children and leaving the bodies exposed, bears the hallmarks of cartel intimidation tactics, sending a brutal message that blood ties to the enemy offer no protection.
And what I'm talking about in particular is not just the propensity of young black men for violence.
Political dramas. This is Ostia, a popular resort on the Roman coast. And this is also Ostia. We are marginalized here. We're living in a favela.
I'm dying of hunger and living in a garage.
It is a deeply divided place where people feel politics has failed them. In its place, organized crime has filled the gap through drug trafficking and extortion. The local five-star movement who took control of the council last year has promised to crack down on the gangs and rebuild the area.
The problems are very real. It's a marginalized place. There are drugs, there's crime. People here have been forgotten.
And it's in neighborhoods such as this one here where people feel they have really been abandoned, let down by governments over the years. And while a new set of politicians is promising change, there's very little faith here that will actually happen. Without political support, those living here have had to take it upon themselves to make it more habitable, including creating spaces for children to play where there once was nothing. The local council's responsibility assumed by those whom it's supposed to serve.
Everything that's been done here has been done by us, and it's not because we do not want to work with officials, but there's always been a wall between the citizens and the authorities.
And the problems here have also been acknowledged by the head of the Roman Catholic Church. During a visit on Sunday, the first in 50 years by a pontiff, Pope Francis condemned the organizations that have turned Ostia into a power center of mafia violence.
Jesus wants the walls of indifference and silence to be breached. Iron bars of oppression and arrogance torn asunder.
But in particular, it's not just the propensity of young black men for violence.
Believe me, if I started murdering people, there'd be none of you left.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're taking a look at 10 disturbing interviews with killers.
You admit to being evil, Richard?
We are all evil in some form or another.
For this list, we're looking at instances where accused murderers chilled our bones with statements or body language during interviews. Did any of these moments freak you out? Let us know in the comments. Number 10, John Wayne Gacy. The Netflix documentary The John Wayne Gacy Tapes did a lot to point out the notorious serial killer's sociopathic tendencies when it came to shifting blame for his accused crimes.
Shoelaces, huh? You're in trouble now. Yeah, right. Aren't you afraid sitting that close to me?
This wasn't the first time evidence to that end has come out, however, as documented by this piece from CBS News 2 Chicago back in 1992.
I don't believe in hitting children. I don't believe in spoiling a child either. My values are such that if you give enough love to children.
Accused of murdering 33 kids, and you say you didn't believe in hitting.
Interviewer Walter Jacobson doesn't need to do much talking in his encounter with Gacy, as it quickly becomes clear that the former Pogo the Clown is trying his best to present alibi after alibi for his innocence.
Bukovich is not one that I killed, so I don't know nothing about him.
Gacy himself is composed for the most part, although there is a moment where he demonstrates his infamous rope trick with a shoelace that echoes the methodology of his horrible crimes.
And you just turn this, and I says it causes a tourniquet. I said, that's the only knot I ever learned.
Precisely the kind of knot found on the ropes.
Number 9, Ted Bundy. Time can change many things about a person, including how they behave while being interviewed. The Ted Bundy featured in a 1977 jailhouse interview from KUTV News appears more in line with the suave yet cold-blooded reputation Bundy had among other notorious serial killers.
You feel that everything will turn out right, that you are innocent. Do you still feel that?
Yeah, more than ever.
He smiles a lot during the piece and displays body language that appears relaxed and almost happy.
I'm not guilty. Does that include the time I stole a comic book when I was 5 years old?
Bundy keeps eye contact with his interview throughout most of their conversation, and it's easy to become lulled into a false sense of security, which was exactly Ted's intention.
If someone's crazy enough and nutty enough to do something like that, I can't stop them. There's nothing I can do.
Fast forward to the night before his execution, and we see a fearful and pensive Ted Bundy, a man seeking to shift blame for his crimes during his interview with Christian conservative evangelist James Dobson.
There are forces loose in this country, particularly, again, this kind of violent pornography.
Number 8, Richard Ramirez. The Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, may be one of the most frightening serial killers of all time, not only due to the brutality of his crimes, but also the projected aura of what many perceive to be pure evil.
Yes, I am evil. Not 100%, but I am evil.
It's easy to see why during some of Ramirez's more notable interviews over the years, including one conducted with author Mike Watkis.
Serial killers do on a small scale what governments do on a large one. They are a product of the times, and these are bloodthirsty times.
Ramirez's somewhat tense responses to Watkis's questioning imply a coiled rage, an anger that's also exemplified by the Night Stalker's breathing as he seems to become annoyed with Watkis.
I'll tell you what, I gave up on love and happiness a long time ago.
Why?
I don't care to explain that. Let the quote stand for itself.
Ramirez is comparatively more relaxed during a piece with Inside Edition, although that interview also hammers home the Night Stalker's obsession with Satanism, evil, and the occult.
I believe in the evil in human nature. This is a wicked world. And in a wicked world, wicked people are born.
Number 7, Edmund Kemper. There's something truly bone-chilling about the matter-of-fact way in which the co-ed killer, Edmund Kemper, describes his past in the 1981 documentary, The Killing of America.
Everything went towards killing him, and I didn't. But I'm saying, wow, it's uncanny. It was almost like it was meant to be that way. And I said, wow, it's got to stop.
Kemper's impressive intellect and well-spoken nature belie the brutality of a man who committed his first murder at the age of 15.
And if it had been in a city, I would have been a mass murderer at age 15. I would have killed until they gunned me down. I wouldn't have been able to reason my way out of it.
The killer even makes a self-referential joke to his modus operandi of
And what I'm talking about in particular is not just the propensity of young black men for
This
violence.
video right here is not all about him. He just continues to be the dummy to jump out the window and make himself look like a fool. I showed you in this video. I mean, this guy right here claims to be a Irish, Italian, Catholic, Mexican, and look at his stock. Look at where he comes from. You know what I'm saying? Look at the things that his people have done to his own people. Violent, chopping people up, gangsterism. And I really believe that this guy right here, this little Elroy guy, Nick Fuentes, I believe that he's one of those boys, whatever state he comes from, I forget. Is he from like Boston? Wherever he comes. Those guys, them fathers in that church, that Catholic, they did something to that boy. I guarantee you. This is why he's so screwed up. This is why he doesn't know whether he wants to be an incel or what. They did something to him, man. And I mean, it's all up in his culture. That's what they do. You know what I'm saying? He'll never address that though, because something went on with him and a lot more of them. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, people.
Kofi, follow me.